you all for being here on a Friday before the final exams. So, I much appreciate it, and hopefully everyone got a chance to have something to eat. We will quickly go through our experience at the International Space University, in particular at the Space Studies program which happened this year in Austria. And we will talk about how you can be a part of such a program and how you can benefit from funding from the Canadian Foundation for International Space University. So, if you're interested in meeting astronauts, space technology entrepreneurs, scientists, even architects and philosophers, you're in for a treat. Because, as many of you said, if you weren't aware, there is such a thing as the International Space University. The main campus is fixed. It is in Strasbourg, France. And next year we will celebrate 25 years of its inauguration. So what their goal is to basically bring people from around the world that have an interest in space and provide graduate level training to those people in a very wide range of backgrounds. Basically what you would do is you would come in with your enthusiasm and build on it and make long-lasting friendships and cooperations with people that have the same interests as you do from around the world. So they offer 3 types of programs, and correct me if I'm wrong, so that's the latest information I have. The Space Studies program, which Tom and I graduated from, a 1-year master. The Space Studies program is 2 months, and it's in the summertime, and every year is at a different location. A 1-year master's program and an executive MBA program. So what you will get out of this is, like I said, a lot of connections. You will learn about a lot of different fields that go into space studies, and you will learn what people do at the current time in terms of policy, law, space technology, and various other fields. The founders, the 2 live remaining founders, are very, very involved with this program still, and they're very enthusiastic about it, and they actually come and visit, and they're actively involved. At the center is Bob Richards with the graduating class of 2011 this year in Graz, Austria. He's a very, very special individual, so if you get to meet him, you'll definitely benefit from that experience. So, a little bit more if you're curious about the space program. We will tell you about what it has to offer from a global overview. So, like I said, the Space Studies program is a 2-month training session. And it's about 120 students from roughly 40 countries. So you'll get to meet and make a lot of new friends. So who attends this program? Typically, a large chunk, as you can see from this graph, typically a lot of people have an engineering background, and physical sciences is another big part of it. But you will meet people with a policy and law background, also space applications and satellite applications, business and management, life sciences, for example, doctors and so on, IT and humanities. So even if you are not directly involved with space technology, there is a place for you if you hold space dear in your heart. So what is the educational level for people participating? Typically people hold a bachelor's degree, a large chunk of participants, or a master's degree, but there's also people with a PhD and postdoc. Now, a lot of these people are also professionals, so they're not in school but actively working. little bit more about the structure of the 2-month program.
Great, thanks. So there are 3 main phases that the program is broken up into over the 2 months. The first phase is the core lecture series. Every day you wake up and you get to hear very interesting talks among the variety of topics. There's a list of the different fields and departments that they present a little later on. And those lectures go on for 4 weeks or so, about a month. In the afternoon, about halfway through, they switch into workshops. So these are more targeted, supposed to be hands-on, and they teach you different techniques and skills that are used in the space industry. For example, I went to a workshop about space debris, where you can where we used software to try to estimate the frequency with which you would have an occurrence where your satellite might get hit with something. Or they have workshops on the satellite toolkit. It's the de facto standard in orbit mechanics and predicting ground spots and things like that for satellite imagery. The second phase, you go into a separate department, and you pick from one of 7 departments. This is an area that you either have some excitement in getting into or some experience. They urge you to pick something that you don't know about. So why would you go to something you already work in or you're an expert in? So you pick one department to specialize in, and you meet with those people on a regular basis. That ranges from anywhere from 10 people to say 20 people or 30 people. But they tend to be smaller groups, lots of discussions, very interactive sessions, and lots of activities, field trips to see interesting sites, things like that. And the third phase is the team project. And this is where they put you to the test. A lot of hard work. You gather up with about 40 people on in our year we had 3 different team projects. And you have to combine all of your efforts to form one document. And if you've ever tried to write a document with 40 people, you can understand the challenge.
40 people from different countries, different backgrounds.
So here's the different areas. These are areas that they'll present a little bit of information in each of the core lectures, where the core lectures is spread between these information items. And then you specialize in one of these areas for your department. Business and management, where you learn how the space industry functions, the types of organizational structures, and some of the different financing options. Space systems engineering, where you take a systems approach and you learn a little bit about requirements analysis and things like that. Satellite applications, where you study remote sensing and you learn what can be done and why you should do it. Physical sciences, where you look at some of the processes of the universe. Space law and policy, where you look at the Outer Space Treaty and the frameworks, how space agencies work and why you need a space agency. Life sciences, where you look at some of the physiological effects of going to space. And space and society, where you look at how society views space and how you can motivate society to get excited about space. And of course, throughout the whole process, you hear about our 3 I's, and that's the credo of ISU. It's an interdisciplinary, intercultural, international experience. And you get 40 countries represented at a typical ISU. So you can see it's very international. You get to meet really amazing people from all around the world.
And also your instructors are from all over the world, sharing perspectives from different points of view, so you get the benefit of understanding what the issues are globally. For example, with regards to satellite remote sensing and things like that.
Yeah. So that's the sort of the course component of it. And I'll tell you some specifics about the past ISU to get you excited and give you an idea of what you might see if you were to go next year or in future years. So our program occurred in Graz, Austria. So Austria is sort of a triangle. Graz is in the bottom section, just beneath Germany. Austria is just beneath Germany. It's a very old core to the city, so lots of great sightseeing there. It's a chance to live and work in a very neat city. And of course, if you're in that part of the world, there's local beer, lots of local beer, and it's very good. So the core lectures, again, we have amazing people come in to present these things. You have an astronaut come talk to you one day, the next day you might have the head of the Canadian Space Agency, or the head of the science research for the Canadian Space Agency came in. You have lots of business leaders from around the world that are coming in. We had an architect talking about how to design habitation modules and how they apply those, some of the techniques you can use in space are used on Earth to buy. Lots of scientists, dreamers, very exciting people to keep you awake. This guy here made us do the wave all the time to make sure that everyone was excited and happy in a way. Again, you have such long days that it's a lot of concentration. So these very exciting people help to make it worthwhile.
Your day starts at 8 and ends at 1, perhaps. So.
And you can see, so this is an array of the staff members here, and everyone is such an integrated team that at the end they put on a little concert for us. Just a really unique group of people teaching it. And again, this is the Team Canada photo with Bob Thirsk, one of the Canadian astronauts. So you can see out of the 120 people that go to this, Canada has a very strong showing, unusually large for a country our size. We're going to tell you a little bit about the reasons behind that when we get to the section on the Canadian Foundation for sending people there. When you break off into the departments, you get to do really neat activities that are specific to those departments. Up here, they're dissecting something in what is it?
Bigfoot and cow parts.
So that's from the medical department here. Here they're looking at a negative pressure chamber. And again, with those long days, you have to catch sleep wherever you can. This is on a hike on top of a nice Austrian hill, looking out across the great vista, and you catch a small nap wherever you can. So I thought we'd pause for a second, and I'll tell you a little bit about my department, and then I'll let you talk about her department, just to give you a little more insight into what we chose. So I was in the policy and law department, and I chose that because I wanted to learn sort of the motivations behind why people select to do space projects and how you can get people excited about it. So we looked at all the different United Nations treaties, policy and law. A lot of it is surrounded by a lot of the motivation comes from these treaties. These were formed from the 60s onwards through to today's discussions, where they're trying to regulate and build upon different elements of the space framework. They're trying to motivate exploration and bring the countries together. So we had chances to pretend to be, we had a mock UN meeting from the Office for Outer Space Affairs, and we debated some of the issues in these treaties. So it was a neat look at the framework that we all have to operate with, frequency registration, and some of the laws. For instance, did you know that China isn't allowed to work with the United States right now on space projects? The very interesting frameworks that exist right now that you need to be aware of in order to participate.
So I was involved with the Life Sciences Department. The Life Sciences Department, the focus was, from a human perspective, what happens to an astronaut in space, and what are all the experiences and physiological changes that happen once you go into space. So we had the opportunity to talk to a large panel of astronauts who came to present, and also we tried space food, so we ate space ice cream, which was very interesting to say the least. We learned what it takes to be an astronaut. So we looked at what's the selection process and typically what people go through to get to where they are. And we did a bunch of experiments. So here where you see the circle, that's a negative pressure suit that is used to help with blood flow in your lower body if you're in space. So these are some sort of tests that astronauts had to go through. So we actually got to experience some of this ourselves. And it was very, very fun. We even had an expert on survival training, teaching us what we can do if our space capsule lands somewhere in the middle of Russia, and you have to fend for yourself to find food or survive until a rescue crew comes and picks you up. So it was very, very interesting, and I highly recommend that department. It was definitely not in my field of study or background, but it was well worth it.
The other element that you'll see are workshop and theme days. And so the workshops, again, are sort of those hands-on experiences where you're in front of a computer, or you're in front of a circuit, or you're building little robots to collect things around the court. See in the photo on the top there, one of the groups made geodesic domes to experience how you could develop structures for use on another planet. Bottom picture is a hike We went to a local high spot in Graz so we could look at remote sensing imagery, just like on Google Earth, the satellite imagery, and see what it looks like when you're actually standing above it, and see how it compares, and if you can identify where you are on that image.
And on the left, there was a discussion on religion and how does that fit with the concept of space exploration and the universe. So it was a very interesting talk.
So throughout the day, you have these workshops, the theme days, the core lectures, and then at night, instead of having free time, they give you distinguished panel series or distinguished lecturers. These are very prestigious people that come in. They're usually there for just a day or two from their tight schedules. They happen to be swimming through Austria, or they're scheduled to come in just for a day. One such panel we had was an astronaut discussion panel. So all of these people down here are astronauts from different countries, led by one of the ISU faculty. At the bottom there we have discussion on the different space agencies. And of course, to show you Canada's role, we have David Kendall from the Canadian Space Agency officiating and facilitating the discussion there. So we got a chance to learn what's going on around the world, again, that international feel. Oftentimes around Canada especially, we only hear about the United States and NASA's work, if we even hear anything about the Canadian Space Agency's work. So now it's a great chance to learn about Russia and China and Japan and all the other countries. In addition, there's a scheduled professional visit as well as any other ones that you decide to take on yourself. So we decided to visit the Canadian Embassy while in Austria. We took the trip up to Vienna, and they welcomed us. They were excited about learning about the great space activities that we were participating in. They didn't really know that this was going on, so it was a good chance for us to show the other Canadians in Austria that there was such a big Canadian presence there. In addition, Austria is very unique in having the Office for the Outer Space Affairs as part of the United Nations there. So we had a chance to go and see what they do and what their process is, and hear from some of the representatives that work for the office. So the third component of the ISU experience is the team project. And so again, this is where you split up into several groups. We had about 40 people. My particular group was the guidebook on small satellite programs. There was also a freshwater preservation team, as well as the human-robot cooperation for the trip to Mars, which Mihaela was in. And in my group, we had 20 different countries represented in those 40 people. So it's truly an international experience. And it can be a big challenge to try to get 40 people to be writing and researching and staying productive for a couple of weeks on end, and in the end you're just producing 100-page document. So our guidebook was commissioned by the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, and they wanted to know, in the world of small space, because a lot of the components for small satellite programs are cheaper and less expensive, and the launch is less expensive, a lot of companies and small countries are getting into space. With smaller units, they can afford it now with some of the advances that have been made over the years. And so they wanted to know where should a country start? If they've never done anything space related before, there's not really a document out there that can be a guide from the start of your project to setting up that initial set of phases for the project. So we prepared a book that discusses the frequency regulations, as well as some of the components that you're going to need, who you're going to need to run these projects. And in the end, we hope to actually have this book in people's hands that need it. So in the countries that are about to start these projects, and the people who are really just beginning to get into it, not the experts. The experts know how to do it. So this is sort of an intro primer. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Mars project?
I won't talk about the specifics of the project itself, but what I will say is that you will have the opportunity to pick on different roles. So because it's a very, very tight schedule, and there's a lot of deadlines, you have to submit, you have to do a presentation, you have to do a report, you have to do a letter of intent. So there's a proposal stage, there's a lot of tight deadlines. And when you work with people from a lot of different backgrounds and from different countries from around the world, they have different outlooks on how things should work and on how they deliver certain items. So you have the opportunity to be a project leader or a project planner or an editor. So there's different jobs that you would do within the project itself. So I had the opportunity to be an editor for the document and also a project planner. So it was a very, very unique experience that will definitely go on my resume. So it's very, very interesting. So if you're passionate and you want to get experience in that field, definitely in any project management area, really, you should join one of these teams. The Human Robotic Cooperation for Mars project, we were looking at what is the optimum balance between automation and human components to send to retrieve a sample from the Martian surface. So that was our main goal. But like I said, it was more about the process of getting the project done than the project itself. Really, it was a life-changing experience, I would say.
Well, and as Ella said, especially with things like editing, the Canadians tend to have a strong role as English speakers, and also as sort of an outgoing culture. They do tend to take on a strong role. So every team had several Canadians from our group
And
that
you don't see
pushed forward on things.
You don't see.
And yes, of course, you don't sleep. You can see people taking naps wherever they can. There were many, many nights where people worked around the clock, and then other people would arrive in the morning and take on the next shift. So everybody brings along their laptop to a classroom, and you make it home for a couple of weeks. So now we're going to tell you some of the things that you won't find on the website or the brochure. All the fun stuff. So probably the most looked forward to thing every week was the culture nights. Each of the countries has a chance to present for 10 minutes or so about their culture, their country, the music, the dance, the outfits that they wear. Try to give you a sense of what it means to be from that country. So you can see our Czech Republic friend here, our Latvian friend, and of course, where else are you going to see an American that works at NASA surfing on a desk? And when it came to Canadian culture night, we had poutine. And the tradition for Canadians is to have a canoe. Now, apparently this goes back all the way 24 years ago to the first SSP. And the first Canadian team brought a canoe, and it's happened ever since. So we had our two young Canadians there rowing across the country with, of course, tubes and beer.
So the canoe is filled with beer. It's also the tradition.
And as we represent the entire country, we decided to have our Newfoundlander screech everyone in. And so for those of you here in Ontario that don't know what screeching is, you take a shot of the screech alcohol, and then you have to kiss a fish. So we had almost everybody kiss this fish here. Even one of the visiting faculty from Russia. This is a very prestigious Russian professor, part of the Russian Academy of Sciences, that kissed our fish. And I think one of my favorite events throughout the whole process was the Space Masquerade. This is like Halloween, but just for space geeks. We all dressed up in the most outlandish space costumes we could find. Alien investigation team, space debris. You see they're broken apart, so they become debris. Shuttle complete with the booster rockets falling off there, and another shuttle that ran around all night. And then we went and we partied in a cave for a night. It was deep in one of the Austrian hills. Now you find at ISU you get a lot of very enthusiastic, very outgoing people. So things just pop up all the time, whether it's a trip to a pub, a trip to a club, or an extra speaking event, a tour to a museum or something like that. Or you just get an email in the middle of the afternoon saying we're going to have a wine and cheese party. So the French people organize a wine and cheese party, and apparently in France they have a tradition where they burn a cork and give everyone mustaches, little French mustaches. So you get some very interesting experiences that you may not.
We all have mustaches.
Yeah, you can see everybody there has a mustache.
Even the cops who showed up.
In addition, you have lots of other bonding experiences, receptions and picnics. Each of the team projects goes away on a small trip to sort of bond together to celebrate the finish. My team went to a chocolate factory. There's a picnic here where they gather up and have lots of food. Trips to cafes. students. Half of ISU is the course content that you learn, the other half is the people you meet. This is how you meet them and get to know them. So I'll pass it back to Haylock to tell us a little bit about next year's ISU.
So, what's in store for next year? Next year is a very exciting year. It celebrates the 25th anniversary of the Space Studies program. And the program will be held at the Florida Institute of Technology in the States and NASA Kennedy Space Center. So it's very, very exciting. It will start June 4th and it will end on August 3rd. And if you want credits for that program, you have to talk in advance with your university. So University of Waterloo, you have to push for that yourselves. So if you're still interested, the application process typically involves 2 steps. So the first step is you apply to get into the program. So you apply to the International Space University. You apply online, and the deadline is January 31st. The application process is very smooth. So they have an online database, and you just go through it and you fill it out. You do have to send out recommendation letters, I believe 2 of them, and you have to write a small essay. And the second step is, if you would like to have financial support, is to apply for a Canadian Foundation for International Space University scholarship. And that is done through mail, and all the details are on the website listed, and the deadline is again January 31st. It's a very obvious application process, and the details are explained online. It's not too bad. So just to give you a bit more information on the Canadian Foundation for International Space University, or CFISU. This is a non-profit organization that has sent Canadians to the SSP program since the beginning of the program itself. Typically what they cover is your tuition, your meal plan, transportation, and accommodation. So it's basically all costs are covered. They do have partial scholarships, so if they have too many applicants and they find them deemed to go, you can get partial funding, and Tom can talk about that a little more. But there's options for funding if you really want to go. Now, in terms of eligibility, what the website says that the applicants must be Canadian citizens. However, I called and confirmed they do accept permanent residents. They just haven't had a lot of applications in the last year. They just posted online Canadian citizens. But they do look at your application on a person-by-person basis. And you have to be proficient in English. You have to hold an undergraduate degree at the time of application. And you must be enrolled or accepted in a graduate level program, or you have to be in a professional program granting a degree. Also, professionals are accepted, and provided that you haven't graduated for more than 5 years. And this is a new rule that they've applied for this following year. So typically, what they look for in your application is good academic performance. So they look at your transcripts. They look at your language proficiency through your essay. It's not a very lengthy essay, but they do get a feel of how you manage. They look at your 2 letters of reference. And through your essay, they look at what is your interest in space or space-related applications. Do you have an intercultural experience, interdisciplinary? Are you a leader? Are you involved in teams? And how are you involved in those teams, and so on. So if you have any questions, please let us know, and we're more than happy to talk. It's a very informal talk, so please let us know if you have any questions.
So we'll also point out we have 2 other ISU people here. We have Farnoud and Perry. Farnoud completed the master's program, so if you're interested in the master's program as opposed to the SSP, then he's probably the person to talk to. Perry, Mihaela, and myself completed the SSP, the summer program. As well, Perry is one of the representatives on the Canadian Foundation. So if you are interested in applying for the scholarship, he's a really great resource you may not have access to later.
What's a master's program?
It's a year-long program. So what Tom and Mihaela just explained here as far as SSP is concerned, just stretch that into a year-long process. Well, it's more like 9 months, because 3 months out of that year, you can choose to go work in the space industry. So you can choose literally anywhere in the world. I ended up going to Japan and worked on a lunar rover there for the Google Lunar X Prize program, which is going to fly through JAXA, not through GLXP. But anyway, so 3 months of the year you do that. 9 months, what they describe, that happens in 9 weeks. You do that over 9 months, and I think there's more opportunities for professional visits, especially in Europe, because you're in Strasbourg, France, which is a very central location, and you get out to Kness, all the French space agencies, you go to DDR, Germany, and we ended up going to Moscow. We saw pretty much everything that's got anything with the Russian space agency, which is, it's quite cool. You go to the Soviet Union and you see what they did. So it is a year. So you have to put away a year, and you end up with an MS at the end of the day.
And is it funded? You get
it's the same thing. So you can get full scholarship through this university itself. You can get scholarships through the ISU as well for that program. There are partial scholarships, but the living costs and your transportation to and from and all the other things are on yourself. They will only give out scholarships for tuition, and which is it's 25,000 euros. It's not much.
Yeah, so I guess that's a little bit of a difference. So if you qualify for a scholarship from CFISU for the SSP program, the costs are mostly covered for everything.
And what is the cost associated with the SSP? What sort of tuition are you paying, and what sort of accommodations do you get? I noticed you all sleeping in the classrooms, but do you have a bed?
So we stay, that particular year, we stayed in some of the student residences on campus. The students were away in summertime, so we were all in a residence, which made it great because you're right with the people you're working and talking with, going to school with. Everyone you need to talk to is right there, and you're centrally located in the city. I understand it's going to be the same situation for next year. I don't know the details yet, but as far as I know, you'd be staying in residences in Florida. Now the master's program, I believe you have to find an apartment. Is that the case?
Yeah, you find your own housing in the city of Strasbourg. There's different parts of the city, so and the rent again vary depending on if you're in downtown or in the outskirts, just like anywhere else.
And for the cost of the program, I believe it was 16,500 euro was the tuition. Now that includes the meals as well as the housing. So you're responsible for that as well as flight there. So depending on where it is, it may be cheaper or more expensive. And I don't have the number for this year, but I imagine it would be about the same.
And we also got meal coupons that we could use around town at various restaurants. So you had the option of eating on campus, or for a limited cost, you could eat in town. So we were very well taken care of. That's what I can definitely say. Yeah.
I'm interested in the design projects. It sounded like the UN prompted the design project that you worked on, Tom. I'm also surprised you didn't work on the Mars robotics, given your experience. But who else comes up with these sorts of design projects? And are they affiliated with particular departments at the program, or is it just it's phase 3, it's something completely new?
A lot of the time they're new, they're created by the faculty, depending on who they have to come supervise them. Now if someone comes to the ISU and says, we'd like to sponsor this project, or we'd like you to do a project, then ISU is more than willing to prepare a project like that. So sometimes they have companies coming in, or the UN does this type of thing. Mihaela, you talk about next year's project. You said NASA is responsible.
Yeah, so next year, it's very unusual. They have, instead of having 3 projects, they took the students' recommendations and they split into 4 different projects because 3 projects was almost unmanageable. So they had, for next year, like I said, they have 4 projects. One of them is on space debris mitigation, which is a very hot topic. One of the other projects is on, and it's led by an astronaut, Dr. Reinhold, looking at what is the next step on the International Space Station project, which is going to be decommissioned, I believe, in 2018. So what will the next International Space Station look like, and who will be involved, and what sort of issues and policy problems and things as such will arise. Another project deals with, this is very interesting, spaceports. Yeah, spaceports. So building a network of spaceports in space, basically, to facilitate long-distance transportation. So I don't know much details, but the details of the project are online. So basically, we would look from a business and management point of view, who would manage these things, policy and law. So we would look at whose jurisdiction they fall under and who would manage them. So it's a fairly big project. And they have another project that looks at STEM. How do we motivate students to get into science, technology, mathematics, and so on, and engineering. So it depends what background you have, and it depends on what you want to pursue, really. They give you an opportunity to choose. And also with the workshops, you can choose what workshops you want to go to, so you have the freedom of doing that as well. Do you have any other questions?
For the physical sciences, what sort of topics do they cover? Do you guys know?
We weren't in that department. Did you guys?
I wasn't in the department either, but you're really looking at some of the sort of astrophysics type, chemical composition of the universe, how the universe, began from the Big Bang all the way to the present day, and just background on some of the current research areas that astrophysicists are looking at. Discovery of extrasolar planets, and all kinds of things like that, related to really the pure science of space. Yes, I mean there are workshops in all of the departments, and some of the workshops are targeted just to the students in a particular department, but many of them are open to anybody. So you really get to choose which workshops you attend based on the topics and kind of how they're scheduled, because there's a lot of them going on all concurrently, so you have to kind of pick and choose based on your schedule and your area of interest.
Yes, the workshops are anything from space art to building your own rocket, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to choose from, for sure. I attended a workshop where we built a habitat in 4 hours. We had cardboard boxes and anything creative that we could think of, we could build. So it was very, very interesting. And I'm not sure what's in store for next year because they change every year depending on location. So, I mean, they had for the physical sciences, I think they went to a laboratory and they looked through telescopes and so on. So it depends what they have on site. So all these projects will change. And they're listed on their website and they're updating it. I think currently they're just trying to put together all the curriculum and update it on. But the main team projects are firmly selected, and you can look through that and see what would interest you.
Is there any thought of the summer program coming to Canada? And I'd like to go somewhere exotic.
I believe it has been in Canada before. Is that York
first one?
Yeah, it was at York University in 1990, which was the third summer session program, and then it returned in 2005, which is when I attended actually in Vancouver at UBC. And it's been in Canada twice, and there are talks about another application for a Canadian session within the next few years.
Yeah, so I think there's bids. So it's known about 2 years in advance. I think the next SSP is in Brazil.
Yep.
After this one, so there's a kind of a competition of between countries to host it.
Yeah, it's kind of like winning the Olympics, right?
Yeah. It's like an
a little bit
Olympic
smaller
bid.
scale.
But it's worth pointing out that Bob Richards is one of the founders of the school. He's a Canadian as well, so there is a strong Canadian component to the program. He does like to see it in Canada. He does like to have lots of Canadians come, and that's one of the main reasons why the Canadian Foundation was set up. It's instrumental in making sure that Canadians have the opportunity to come.
And you'll see a very strong presence among staff, TAs, speakers. So it's
Yeah, there's a very strong Canadian contingent, not only in the student base, but as Neil is saying, the faculty and the staff. And that's been since day one. I mean, there have been some Canadians in very influential positions at ISU that, Dave Kendall, who you mentioned, who's the Director General of Space Science at the Canadian Space Agency, has been the chair of the Academic Council. And we've also had other prominent members of Canadian space industry involved at very high levels in ISU.
And what's very impressive is that a lot of these people are there on a volunteer basis. So they're really, really passionate about what they do, and you get to talk to them in person. And after the night sessions, the lecture sessions, there's receptions. So that's why you don't go home until 1 a.m. because you talk to some of these people in a very informal setting. So it's a very good experience, definitely.
Other than having such a wonderful experience after finishing these 2 months, what else again do you want to continue and involved in any space program?
That's a very good question. I know of at least 3 companies amongst the SSP 2011 that have started after the program, and also the amount of professional contacts that you make and the network that you gained. It's really a global network, and you basically learn about opportunities that you could not have learned otherwise. So for me, it was very beneficial because it opened up the doors to different possibilities, job-related in terms of going to Europe, and I was just aware of them through this program, and I would not have been otherwise. And also, like I said, some people decided to join and form companies specifically related to satellite applications. So definitely, if you're willing to be open to other people and to other people's suggestions and experience, you can benefit as much as you want from this. Yeah.
Another aspect of that too is the team projects. Many of them live on beyond the summer session or the master's programs, and the teams go on to present them in prestigious conferences like the International Astronautical Congress, for example, which is kind of the most prestigious annual space conference. I think all 3 team projects actually presented at IAC in Cape Town, South Africa this year. So many times these things, the life of these projects kind of lives on beyond the program.
Specifically from the Canadian perspective, as an attendee, you become a member of the Alumni Association. That's the shirt here, the CAISU. And so that's another network that you're in if you're looking for jobs in the space industry in Canada, contacts or advice, things like that. So you have access to that network there. And that goes on for life. You can't get out of that.
Yeah, that's one of the real strengths too of the Canadians. We've had this Alumni Association basically since the beginning of ISU, and we've worked very closely with the Canadian Foundation for ISU, which has also been around since the beginning. And the two organizations together really promote ISU and are able to raise funds from organizations across Canada to support these scholarships. And Canada has really become a model for other countries in this regard, because there's not a real strong alumni network or funding organization in most of the other countries that send people to ISU. So a lot of them look to Canada as sort of the model as to how to do it.
Do you think based on this program you'll find a career in space industry, or it doesn't make you?
So the question was, do you think that attending this program will help you find a career in the space industry?
Yeah.
I would say so. Specifically through the professional contacts that you make. And typically and this is very informal, we created a Facebook group, so whenever there's a job posting or an opportunity, it's always posted internally. There's a big word of mouth power to it. So you're in a family, and the family typically shares opportunities, and you can ask for suggestions, or you can ask for help if need be. So I think that's a very good point. You do get exposed, and you do get help in your career if that's your plan.
They like to joke that ISU is called the Space Mafia, because since it's been around for so long, a lot of the people who attended the first programs are now in sort of senior positions. So if those people are hiring managers and they see that ISU is on your application, they may take a second look at you as well.
Yeah, in many of the space agencies and space organizations around the world, if you run down the list of employees in their organizational charts, many of the people who are in fairly senior positions in those organizations now have been involved with ISU. So it really is pretty remarkable, actually, that this whole joke about the space mafia, there's actually something to it, because people who are really influencing the direction of space policy and space programs worldwide now have been involved in ISU.
Anyone else? Questions? I mean, we can shut this off and mingle and finish the pizza. And if you have personal questions, yeah, feel free to approach us. We're here until, we have the room until 3 o'clock, so it's only 1:30. So definitely take advantage of this, and let us know if you have personal questions. And I will email you the presentation if you would like in PDF format. So if you want to take a look at it and then look at the application.
What software did you use to put that together? Nice transitions there.
I used Prezi. It's really easy to use.
Thanks.
Thank you.